Hi, this is Tom. Welcome to my channel. I'd like to present 3 tips for working with AI. So the first tip I'd like to share is to have it ask you questions. So there's a couple of contexts for which this works well. One would be if you give it a complex task, rather than just wait for it to do the task, you can say, do you have any questions? And it will, if it has any questions, it'll ask them. And if it doesn't, it will likely either do the task or it'll summarize what it understood, both of which are better results than for it to just go off and do the task, even though it's guessing. So you can do that either, just like I said, just say, do you have any questions? Or you could have it bifurcate, like, if you have any questions, ask, otherwise, do the task. And that will weed out when it really doesn't know what it's doing and it's just guessing, weed out a lot of bad results. The second way is that it's a good way of jump starting a session or a task. So, for example, an excellent prompt, very simple prompt, very effective, would be you could ask the AI, you could say, tell the AI, I'm interested in learning to use AI more effectively. Ask me questions. And that simple prompt will trigger the AI to ask you probably about a dozen questions, maybe less, but it'll ask a lot of questions, a good amount of questions, and they'll be good questions. They'll be like, what's your background? What are you intending to do with AI? Things like that. And that'll be a good way to jumpstart the conversation. And this works particularly well if you're not sure what you want to ask it. So you can just let it lead. And also, even if you do know what you want to do, it can still be a time effective way of working with it. I'll give an example, which is for this actual app that I just built here. I'll show how I started this. So I started this with this prompt here. I'd like you to write an SPA, that's a single page application. I can run in my local browser for a YouTube video. I'm going to present tips. Ask me questions. And then you can see it asks me a bunch of questions. And you can see that the space bar here is quite large, which means this wasn't a long session. So I was able to get it to write this app that I'm using right now very efficiently by using this approach. So that's tip number one. Ask me questions. Tip number two is to have it create documents. So I use documents all the time. I find that to be a very effective way of working with AI. And also, the documents can be useful for myself to refer back to. So some examples would be a handoff to start new sessions. So even though I clicked on it. Even though I was trying to highlight it and then I clicked it. Even though the, what was I saying? Even though the context window for the AIs are quite large now, they become less effective as the context window gets larger and larger. And that's especially the case if you don't just deal with one thing. So if you're just dealing with one task and that's all you talk about in the whole session, then it tends to do pretty well at that. But even if you're dealing with one task, it's likely that you're going to go into different areas. So as soon as you start to talk about different things, it's more likely to get confused and mix the different ideas. So you want to start a new session, you can have it write a document to give to itself. And you can just tell it that. You can say, I want to start a new session because this one's gotten long. Please write a handoff document. You just give it to it in the next session. You can use it for session summaries to capture aha moments. So when you're talking with it and then you have some insight which is common with AI because they're really good at getting you to, trigger ideas, or it'll present an idea. You think, oh, it's a great idea. You can have it write it out in a document to save, and also as a knowledge base for prompts. So I'll give an example of that. So I was working with it on an app, um, and it writes out, cards like paragraphs that have ideas. And I got it to do the tone that I wanted. There's a certain specific way for it to do it, and I had to work with it for a while to get it to do everything that I wanted. And as soon as I got everything, then I asked it to, if it could understand, like to say back to me what it understood that I wanted, and it did. And then I asked it to write that out as a document that I could give back to it in future sessions. And my asking it to write out what it understood, that's also a nice technique. The idea there is to help set the context for the next task that you want it to do. So now I've got this document that I can give to it when I'm working on this same thing, and that's an easy way of, it's an easy prompting technique to just refer to documents that it's written. Or another example is I have a complex app that I've been working on for a long time. I had to write out an architectural document. I had to write out a workflow document. I can have it write out a task document for the next task that we're working on, and just present these documents. And that's a very effective way of working with AI. Then the last tip that I have is to speak to it as a human being, like you would a human. And the idea there is that it can be a very effective way of resetting its context. For example, it's having trouble doing a task, getting a result that you want to get. If you say to it, this isn't working, I think I'll start a new session. It's likely to react to that by prioritizing getting a viable result over trying to get the best possible result. Now you could write that out instead. You could say, please prioritize getting a viable result rather than optimizing the results. But just communicating to it like you would to a human is actually quite effective. And that has to do with just the way that it was trained. So those are 3 tips that I hope you find helpful in your sessions with AI. And thanks for watching. Until next time.